Have you ever wondered why, despite everything available to golfers today, the average player is basically no better than they were 30 years ago? Think about what has changed in that time. Billions spent on equipment technology. Golf balls engineered to fly further and straighter than anything that came before. Courses conditioned to a standard that would have seemed extraordinary a generation ago. Sports science applied to the game in ways that simply didn't exist. And perhaps most striking of all, a virtually unlimited supply of instruction available at any moment of any day, completely free, on a device that fits in your pocket. By every measure, the modern golfer has more tools, more knowledge, and more resources than any golfer in the history of the game. And yet, the data tells a quietly remarkable story. The average golfer is roughly 2 shots better than they were 30 years ago. 2 shots after all of that. The middle handicap bracket, the 10 to 20 range where the vast majority of club golfers sit, has barely moved at all. Something isn't adding up, and I think I know what it is. Cast your mind back to how golfers used to practice. Before the smartphone, before the launch monitor, before the internet made every professional swing available to study in slow motion from 17 different angles. Golfers had method, they had discipline, they had setup routines, checking alignment, ball position, posture, going through everything carefully and deliberately. Practice was taken seriously. This wasn't casual or haphazard. The difference was in how all of that was experienced. Every check, every rehearsal, every adjustment was felt rather than filmed. The setup was sensed from the inside. Does this feel right? Does this feel aligned? Does this feel like the shape I want? If a golfer wanted to see their swing at all, the only option was a mirror. Driving ranges sometimes had them. You would use it to get the look you wanted, feel it in the body, rehearse it a couple of times, and then step away and swing. Once you stepped away from that mirror, there was nothing external left. No visual feedback after the ball left the club. No film to check. No freeze frame at impact. No comparison to a tour professional on a 4-inch screen. Just the feel, and the trust in the feel. If it felt right, intuitively, from the inside, that was enough. If it felt wrong, they went back, adjusted, rehearsed again. The whole discipline process kept bringing them back to the same place, back to their own internal experience, back to the body, back to what the swing felt like from the inside rather than what it looked like from the outside. Something important was being built through that process, an internal reference system, a body intelligence, a deep and reliable knowing of what right feels like, not what it looks like. Not what a computer says about it, but what it genuinely feels like from the inside. The practice was disciplined, but the discipline went through feel. That is the crucial difference. The mirror pointed inward. The smartphone points outward. And that shift, innocent, unintentional, simply a product of the times, may explain more about why the game hasn't improved than any amount of equipment analysis ever could. Now consider what the smartphone has changed. The modern golfer films every shot, analyses every frame, compares their impact position to a tour professional, identifies 3 things to work on from the last swing before the next one has even begun. They arrive at the first tee, having watched tutorials the previous evening, and they carry those swing thoughts with them through every hole. More information, more analysis, more thinking, and, paradoxically, less trust, less feel, less freedom. The analytical mind has been given unlimited ammunition, and it never switches off. I want to tell you about a father who understood all of this instinctively and what happened because of it. Xander Schauffele is one of the finest golfers in the world. In 2024 alone, he won 2 major championships, the PGA Championship and the Open Championship, in one of the most remarkable seasons any golfer has ever produced. His father, Stefan, was his only swing coach from the age of 9 until he was 30 years old. And Stefan had a rule that was so unusual, so fiercely enforced, that Xander's childhood friends were reportedly afraid of him because of it. Stefan would not allow Xander to watch his own swing on video. Not once. Not until he was 17 or 18 years old. Stefan apparently told him, "I am not going to show you your swing until it is perfect, and it is far from it. So you cannot look at it." Friends who tried to film Xander's swing on a phone and show it to him were threatened. The rule was absolute. Throughout the entire critical period of his development, the years when body intelligence is built, when feel is established, when trust in the swing is formed, Xander was protected from the one thing that might have disrupted all of it, the external image of his own swing. Stefan was not a man who had read academic papers on the subject. He was a former decathlete and a self-taught golf coach who had simply observed, through deep experience and genuine wisdom, that something essential is lost when a young player starts seeing their swing from the outside before they have fully felt it from the inside. He protected his son's feel, deliberately, fiercely, for years. And 2 major championships in a single year suggests he was right. Now I want to be careful here, because the smartphone is not the villain of this story. It is an extraordinary piece of technology. Used well, it can genuinely help a golfer improve. Video analysis with a knowledgeable coach who knows what they are looking for and can translate what they see into something the player can feel, that has real value. The problem is not the information. The problem is what happens when information replaces feel rather than serving it. When the external image becomes the primary reference point rather than the internal experience. When the analytical mind is given so much to work with that the natural game, the one that lives in the body rather than the head, can no longer find its way through. You see this on ranges everywhere. Golfers tying themselves in knots, hitting a shot, rushing to check the video, finding something wrong, trying to fix it on the next swing, filming that one, finding something else wrong. Shot after shot after shot. All of it in the head, none of it in the body, and the natural game getting quieter and further away with every well-intentioned analysis. It is the same story we have told in different ways across this channel. More thinking pushing down on the balloon. The natural game is there. It always is. But it cannot get through all that noise. And here is where this goes beyond golf. Because the information age has done exactly the same thing to human beings that the smartphone has done to golfers. More advice than any previous generation has ever had access to. More data, more comparison, more self-analysis, more opinion. Available at all times, on all subjects, from all directions. And people are not measurably happier or more fulfilled than they were 30 years ago. The inner life cannot be improved from the outside. It never could. And the quiet realization that more information is not always the answer, that sometimes the most powerful thing is to put the phone in the bag and trust what you already know, is one of the most important things a golfer or a human being can discover. The game hasn't changed. The fundamental challenge of standing over a golf ball and swinging a club with a quiet and trusting mind, that is exactly what it always was. Before launch monitors and YouTube and smartphones and sports science and all of it, the golfer with the mirror in 1985 was being nudged towards the one thing that actually produces good golf. Not by design, not because anyone had figured it out, simply because the technology didn't exist yet to pull them away from it. They had to feel. They had to trust. They had no other option. And that constraint, that beautiful, accidental constraint, may have been producing better golfers than all the information in the world has managed to produce since. The next time you are on the practice ground, try something. Leave the phone in the bag. Find the feel you are looking for. Trust it. And swim. Not forever. Not as a rule. Just once. And notice what happens when the analytical mind is given nothing to work with. and the body is simply allowed to do what it already knows. Xander Schauffele knew something that the entire golf industry has spent billions of pounds failing to understand. Feel beats information. Every time. Trust what you already have.